I can't remember how many times I've been to Datong, which is incredible to me. Because if I didn't like this city, I wouldn't have come so many times. The purpose of making this video is to express my feelings about Datong without any concealment. But this is not a promotional video, because this video is not sponsored. All of them are my most real feelings. If you have not been to Datong, please watch my video and I believe you will gain more. Before coming to Datong, I really thought it was just a coal city. Even if no one introduced this place to me, I would naturally have a pungent smell of coal ash in my mind. Before coming to Datong, I didn't know that the most beautiful temple in China was here. After visiting Tadaiji Temple in Nara, I realized that Buddhist temples can be so grand and awe-inspiring. And it was not until I came to Datong that I realized that there were equally awe-inspiring places in China. Before coming to Datong, I didn't know that the only Liang Xiqing and Lin Huiying Memorial Hall in China was here. When I was surprised that Beijing had demolished the former residences of the two gentlemen without leaving a single bit, Datong became our last spiritual sustenance for these two great men. Before coming to Datong, I didn't know that the most worthwhile Buddhist grottos in China were also here. Because the glory of Dunhuan has been scattered all over the world, and only in Datong can we enjoy the exquisiteness of these works of art without restrictions. I remember the first time I came here, the simplicity and tranquility in front of the Xi'an Temple gate instantly made me feel away from the hustle and bustle. It was a wonderful feeling that I could never experience when visiting other temples. It was not until I entered the front yard of the Pu Guangming Hall of Huayan Temple that I was completely conquered by the architectural atmosphere here. Since then, I knew that Datong would be a place I would visit more than once.
大同啊，就类似机会了，类似冲上去就冲上去了，冲不上去就将来类似不会给大同再有机会了。
Why did a city have a wall in ancient times? Of course, it was because it was important. Datong is such an extremely important city. I don't want to repeat the history of Datong here, because you can learn how important Datong was in history in many bloggers' videos. What I want to talk about is the significance of the ancient city of Datong to us now. This is the city wall of Datong, which was rebuilt on the ruins of the Ming Dynasty city wall. Many people would ask, why spend so much money to rebuild a city wall? Isn't it another example of a waste of money and labor? The Chinese government is no longer surprised by the people's waste of money, and all the money is spent on some useless buildings. In fact, I also had such doubts at the beginning. Building a city is the same as demolishing a city. It is all a matter of words from the people above. The ancient city wall of Beijing disappeared forever. Now it seems that the city wall of Datong not only benefits the citizens of Datong, but also allows this northern fortress, which was once full of history, to take on the important task of reviving Chinese culture. It is precisely because of this that when I walked on the city wall of Datong, although I knew that these attics and bricks and stones were built less than 10 years ago, I could feel the grandeur of the ancient Datong fortress, which is far more immersive than what we have recorded in history books. When I was on the city wall, I looked at the gate of Xi'an Temple and the pagoda of Huayan Temple from afar. I can use my limited historical knowledge to associate this place with its glory as a city of peace. I may never be able to feel these things in Xi'an and Beijing. When I understand this truth, the importance of Datong's city wall far exceeds what the great mayor said back then. This is Datong's last chance, and it is also the best history lesson we can take now. I think if Mr. Liang Xichen could see the current scene of Datong, he would probably shed tears of excitement. The historical sites in Datong represent Datong's rich past, and are also the foundation for Datong to restore its history. Before I came to Datong for the first time, I had no idea that this was an ancient city. It can be said that I knew almost nothing about it except for coal. I don't know if it was because it was busy producing coal in the past and forgot that it was an ancient capital. Or is it because there are so many historical sites that people are no longer surprised? I am extremely shocked by the low-keyness of the people of Datong, and even the people of Shaanxi. Here are the largest Liao dynasty buildings in the country, Shanhua Temple and Huayan Temple. These two temples are the best temples I have visited in China. If I can only choose one word, I would like to describe it as unique in the country. As for the rebuilt monuments in the ancient city, I don't think we need to worry too much about whether they are real ancient buildings. What we should care about is whether these later built buildings conform to the Chinese national aesthetics and the historical value they have for our descendants. Just like the ancient city wall of Datong, although it is no longer the original one, when you see the towers, arrow towers, corner towers and urn cities on the city wall that have been restored in the original style, you will feel that this is the magnificent scene of the year. There is only one Daiwang mansion here, and the style is a bit outstanding. It may be related to my dislike of Ming and Qing dynasty-style buildings. The RGB-style lighting design at night has nothing to do with ancient buildings. Now, most of the street-facing buildings in the ancient city are built in the style of the Ming and Qing dynasties, and most of them can be well integrated into the modern environment. It's just that due to the climate in Datong, tourism obviously has a peak and off-season. Therefore, it seems that many of the shops on the street are not well utilized. I also came to an antique street that seemed to be vacant. Probably because of the epidemic or economic reasons, the catering businesses that used to operate here are now deserted. To be honest, the infrastructure of this ancient city is actually quite good, but most of the commercial needs are just to meet the needs of tourists. Real cases from other attractions in China will play a good educational role. Lijiang is like this. It is called an ancient city, but it has actually become an antique shopping street. What I find most strange is that the roads in the ancient city are very well built, and the ancient city is not very large, which is very suitable for cycling. But shared bicycles cannot be parked here, and can only be parked outside the city. It is said that parking was allowed at the beginning, but it was restricted because it was too chaotic and difficult to manage. Anyway, this reason is of course too far-fetched. Are shared bicycles outside the city easier to manage? Perhaps this rule is to leave a last bit of dignity for taxi drivers. I must talk about the Yungang Grottoes. Without this place, Datong may be greatly overshadowed. Many people ask which is better, the Dunhuang Grottoes or the Yungang Grottoes. I have been to both places many times, and I can say responsibly. In terms of importance, there is no difference between the two, both are treasures. But the tourism experience of the Yungang Grottoes should be far superior to that of the Mogao Grottoes. It is difficult for me to blame Dunhuang for the restrictions it has made in order to protect cultural relics. But if you are an ordinary tourist, both the viewing freedom of the Buddhist caves and the exquisiteness of the artworks can feast your eyes. Of course, the Yungang Grottoes have also suffered many destructions and lootings in history, and what we can see now is the result of protection. But compared with the Longmen Grottoes and the Mogao Grottoes, the Yungang Grottoes are obviously lucky. At least, most of the grottos still retain the style of the year. I must talk about the Datong Museum, which is a low-key museum that could not be more low-key. Before I first came to Datong in 2017, no one had introduced this place to me. The free visit here also lowered my expectations a lot, but after entering, I found that I was wrong. This is probably the best Chinese city museum I have ever visited. The time span is so large, from the Cretaceous period to the Qingming period, and there are countless treasures to see. This experience even exceeds the Acropolis Museum in Athens that I have been to. These pottery figurines and lacquerware are among my favorite collections. Every time I come here, I will look at the Liao Dynasty Qiwan in the main hall of this temple for a while. There is also this Tang Dynasty standing statue, which is also my favorite. No matter the line shape, details, or sense of power, it is perfect. Talking about museums, I have to apologize to Dunhuang again. Although the museums in both places are free to visit, the Datong Museum is far superior to the Dunhuang Museum in terms of scale, browsing experience, and the richness of the collection. And this is worthy of the title of a national first-class museum. Finally, let's return to reality, and see how the people of Datong live now. It can be said that the new city outside the ancient city of Datong is now well built. The infrastructure of the streets and living areas is very complete, including various styles of buildings such as museums. It has long bid farewell to the dirty and messy scene of the Meide period. It looks like a modern big city. I live in a community not far from the ancient city. At night, I can see that there are many businesses on both sides of the street. You can buy everything you need for daily life. They even use the space under the bridge to build a farmer's market. It's just that in terms of food and beverage, I feel there is still a big gap with southern cities. When I came to Shanxi, I naturally wanted to find knife-cut noodles, but I walked around the community for nearly 2 or 3 kilometers and only found one, which looked like a small noodle shop that the locals liked very much. I ordered a noodle dish that I had never eaten before. To be honest, the taste was indeed a bit strange. But I can feel that although Datong citizens have moved into high-rise buildings, they still maintain their original way of life. In the morning, various vendors gather at the street corners of the community, setting up stalls for breakfast, vegetables, fruits and snacks, and even snack and meat shops. They treat the street as a large vegetable market. Of course, the randomly parked vehicles on the roadside also give people a feeling of rural China. After all, this is still a newly developed new city. I am not interested in the past of Datong. Although Datong is still producing coal, our demand for coal is bound to decrease in the foreseeable future, and this will become a thing of the past for Datong. Here are some photos of Datong during the Japanese War, so that we can remember those difficult dark years. Finally, I know that although my video is insignificant, I still hope to dedicate this film to Liang Xiqing and Lin Huiying, whom we should always remember, and Mr. Gung Yanbao, whom we still respect.